Today, I'm exploring user stories, features, and Epic, especially how they are used in SAFe because there is a little difference the way epics are used in a generic agile and scaled agile. Let's start with the easiest one, user story, because there is no difference between user story in scaled agile and user story in your generic agile way of working or Scrum way of working. The user story represent a small slice or a vertical slice of a requirement which a one agile team can do end to end in a one iteration. So the maximum size of the user story could be one iteration because at the end of an iteration, we want to have a done or not done information about a user story rather than it is still progressing. By design, exceptions are different, but by design, we plan to finish the user story in a given sprint. All the standards related to a typical format, like it focuses on user persona or a user role. You start with what they want to do and why they want to do something. As a role, you want to do something to achieve something. Those things are applicable in scaled agile way of working as well. In a SAFe, the user stories are primarily led or maintained by product owner role. The team also participate. They can definitely suggest a user story. They can write a user story, but overall refinement and prioritizations of user stories are done by the product owner. Where do we store user story in SAFe way of working? The team backlog contains the user story, which is maintained and prioritized by product owner. So that's a user story. Yes, we do add an acceptance criteria to it. You can use generic format of acceptance criteria, or you can use given, when, and then for the acceptance criteria of user stories. Now let's take a little controversial topic, features. So in a SAFe way of working, unlike Scrum way of working, where you just have a one product backlog, which feeds to the agile team, in a SAFe way of working, you have a two levels of product backlog at a train level. So what is Agile Release Train? Release Train is a collection of agile teams who are working for a common purpose. And this common purpose is defined by a train level backlog. We call it ART backlog. And each team will be working and executing their work by using team backlog. So you can say a one train, one ART backlog. And if the train contains, say, 6 agile teams, all agile teams will maintain their team backlog, which will be containing the small user stories, or there could be something else also, we call them enabler, but small items which will help us in executing and implementing those features which are there in the ART backlog. So since we have a two level of backlog, in the ART backlog, the element of requirement, business requirement which are there are called features. So these ART level requirements which we gathered by talking to business stakeholder, by doing research about them, are further elaborated or splitted with the help of user stories because we want to work on them incrementally. These features are big. They may not get done by one agile team in a one sprint. They may take multiple sprints. There is a possibility one feature may get developed by two agile teams. So you can say some percentage of user story of this feature may go to team A, another percentage goes to team B. And when both the teams finishes these set of user stories, we can say that we have achieved the feature completion. Now somebody will say, okay, so does it mean the user stories get created by splitting the features? We can say, yes, that's the most likely situation. Then we can say, yeah, this is what we used to do in the agile way of working, and we used to call them epic. Anything which is more than one sprint, I used to put into as an epic, as a placeholder, and then we have to refine it as we go along in an agile or a Scrum way of working. So can we say the Scrum epic is equal to SAFe feature? So I would say maybe yes, maybe not. Let's see. So we can say yes, feature is bigger than user story. That way it is big item. Feature will take multiple iterations, incrementally get developed with the help of user story. So you will take few iterations to finish it. Most likely that's the case. In a generic way, we can say one feature may get splitted into multiple user story. For example, I can say 5 to 15 user story. So that way it is something which is big and getting incrementally developed. But there is a difference. Unlike our Scrum way of working or Agile way of working, epics are very vaguely defined. They are just placeholder. They are not well refined. In case of SAFe way of working, features are well refined. The feature contains its benefit hypothesis in a clear term. It contains acceptance criteria also, and they are well understood by the business. And many a time you have an additional detail attached with the features also. For example, you may have a UI wireframe attached to a feature level. We can say this is the feature, this is how it should look like, these are the acceptance criteria to it, and when it is get done based on the acceptance criteria and definition of completion of that feature, we will mark the feature complete. So it is well refined, I would say bigger requirement than user story, but it has a proper acceptance criteria. So that way it is different than your Scrum epics because it is well refined. Now somebody will say, why do you do that? You can directly create user stories if you're talking about those refinement at that level. So I can say the user stories are further well refined. Yeah, so you may have a 5 acceptance criteria in a feature, which may get converted into 15 user stories rather than just 5 user stories. And the idea of feature is it is written or refined at a level which is compatible for business stakeholders. So at the level they want to get into the details to, something which can give them a sense of completion, that is defines a feature. So for example, you want to write about search. You are an e-commerce application and you want to talk about search. Now, when you are talking to your stakeholder, they may want to talk about all aspects of the search. They may want to talk about search by rating. They may want to talk about search by title, search by price, all those things. They may want to visualize how overall search will work. They may want to see a flow of it. They may want to have a wireframe understanding of it, rather than only talking about search by title and say, we will talk about search by review later or search by price later. They want to say, I want to understand search. So in a safe way of working at ART level, the product management group, so that's the role we have, will work with the business stakeholders, system architects, and product owners to come up with these refined features which are put into ART backlog, which is at a level of stakeholder understanding, have a sufficient amount of detailing. But when we go for implementation, we don't want to get into a space where we are saying we are working on this feature and it will take another 3 months to get developed. We want to do the execution incrementally, and in order to support the incremental execution and incremental learning as well, because once we start developing some of the part of the features in the form of user story, we may also get a feedback on it. We split them into small user stories, which can fit into a one iteration for one agile team. So story of a user story and a story of feature in a safe way of working. Now somebody will say, okay, but I heard there is an epic also in safe. So one thing is, epic is something not necessary to be there in all safe implementation. We need to understand that there is a one type of safe implementation, we call it essential safe, where you are primarily only focusing on identifying features, putting them into ART backlog, and working with the help of user stories incrementally and delivering incremental solutions to the end customer in the integrated way as an agile release train. So you can have generic discussion or any source if you are using essential safe, which can feed your ART backlog, and your tracking will start from feature onwards. So in essential safe mode, you may not need safe epics. But when you start applying the safe portfolio configuration or a portfolio layer in your organization, then what you want to ensure is, yes, we are working on some requirements, big requirements, but should we really work on it? Does it make business sense? We need to have some economic justification. We need to have some strategy about working on a particular solution line. So it requires some higher group, we call it centralized decision making, to review the big initiative first before we get into the execution mode. So in a safe word, the container which contains this big initiative, which becomes an element of review to evaluate business case, to identify should we do it or not do it, is called epic, a business level epic. So business epics are maintained at a portfolio level. They are primarily used to evaluate the business justification or a business case for doing or not doing a particular thing. Once they are approved, they stay in a portfolio backlog level. And once we have a agreement that this epic is going to this agile release train, they will come to through the ART level, product management level, and the product management will create the slicing of that particular epic, because we want to implement epic also incrementally, and that will be put into the ART backlog. So when the word epic is coming in a safe way of working, it is something big. You can say one epic may contain 20 to 40 features or more. So something which will run for multiple months. Yeah, I am not using the word PI, multiple months. and something which may get done by multiple trains also, not necessarily the whole train, one train work on a given epic. There is a possibility we may involve more than one train to execute a given epic. So epic is at a portfolio level. It is something, a significant business initiative. Now, some of you who may go a little advanced here, you can say, oh, but we also keep hearing the word enablers. Is it something same? So enablers are something which are technical, which are supporting, which create a foundational work, not directly addressing the business requirement, but they create a foundation which help us in dealing with business requirements at a later stage, is that kind of work item. And these enabler kind of work item can be there at a high level, so we call it enabler epic, can be there at a train level, ART level, we will call it enabler feature, and it can be there at a team level or a user story level, we will call it enabler story. So ultimately, the work will get done at a team backlog level only. We will execute the work in the form of user story only, but we need to have a ART level understanding about what is the business requirement, how are we doing it, that is stored in a feature. And if safe portfolio configuration is also used in your organization, then we also do a business justification analysis of it, and that is where we put safe epics. Yeah. So I hope this helps you in understanding the epic features and user story in a scaled agile way of working. If you have some comments, some sharing related to these 3 requirements or any other area of safe, do comment in our podcast area, in the comment area. If you are liking this safe series, please do subscribe to us because it will help you in stay connected with our upcoming episodes. Thank you for listening and see you in the next episode.